Claritin.
It's time. It's time.
Don't wait another minute for Claritin.
In the last 20 years, there's been an explosion of TV commercials for increasingly expensive pharmaceuticals.
I'll be right back.
Hey, guys. Hey, finally somebody I can look up to.
Ads now feature animated characters and celebrities selling from prescription nasal spray to irritable bowel syndrome pills. They're so common, they've even been made fun of.
Nature.
From the people that brought you Getting Outside comes prescription strength nature.
And at the same time Americans are being flooded with ads, prescription drug prices have shot up in the last 2 decades. And to understand why, first we have to look at consumer advertising. In 1997, the FDA decided to change the rules on how drug companies could sell their products. That meant that for the first time, they were allowed to sell directly to consumers. Over the next 20 years, spending on drug ads quadrupled, and TV commercials increased by 5 times, while consumer out-of-pocket spending on prescription drugs went up by $212 billion. It was a win for TV stations and drug companies.
Drug manufacturers in the United States have monopolies. They have exclusive rights to sell their drugs for up to 20 years. When you have that market monopoly position where you have no competition and you can essentially set whatever price you want and the market will have to pay that. Combine that with demand that's fueled on steroids through mass marketing and you have a recipe for major drug increases.
From then on, pharma companies were able to market their branded medicine to consumers and doctors.
Patients would be asking their doctors for particular drugs that they had seen on TV.
That enabled companies with monopolies to get huge profits. In fact, the second cause of what drives drug prices higher are government-protected monopolies. American laws provide drug makers with long-lasting patents, which give them total market exclusivity and prevents any competition from coming in.
That's a unique system, almost virtually unique in the world. No other countries are that generous to their major corporations that sell drugs.
And that's why many are calling on expanding the use of generics. On average, the cost of a generic drug is 80 to 85% lower than that of brand name products. But pharma companies have figured out ways to avoid competition. One of their methods is gaming patents. In order to extend a patent, drug makers have to modify a drug. They can either change a molecule or make it longer lasting or shorter acting, even change the delivery system.
Boom.
It clicks, so you know it worked. Then you hold it there for 3 seconds.
That's what happened to EpiPens. Epinephrine is a generic medication used by people who have severe life-threatening allergic reactions. But in this case, it was the delivery system to self-administer the medicine that was given the patent. That translated to an almost 600% price hike for a 2-pack of injectable epinephrine in 12 years. But the practice is not just carried out by Big Pharma. You might remember this guy.
If you could rewind the clock a few months, I wonder if you would do anything differently.
I probably would have raised the price higher, is probably what I would have done.
In 2015, Martin Shkreli hiked up the price of a vital drug used by AIDS patients by 5,000%. He was vilified and shamed for the practice.
You a fake supervillain, man.
Shkreli has made prison friends, including Crispy and D-Block, some of whom affectionately call him A-hole.
Do you think you've done anything wrong?
On the advice of counsel, I invoke my Fifth Amendment privilege.
By price gouging is all too common for the industry, and partly because of a law approved by Congress in 2003. That year, lawmakers passed a bill to modernize Medicare, and for the first time, millions of people had their prescription drugs covered. But the law was slapped with an unusual restriction. The government was barred from negotiating cheaper prices for those medicines.
Medicare will pay for the prescription drugs so that fewer seniors will get sick in the first place.
Lawmakers thought millions of people using Medicare for their prescription drugs would have given the government power to pressure drug makers to lower prices. In other words, they didn't want the government to set the prices, similar to what other developed countries do. But more than 15 years later, that has become one of the central topics on the ongoing debate on how to lower prescription drug costs.
Same box, same pill, made in the exact same location, and you'll go to some countries and it would be 20% the cost of what we pay.
We have no price controls on pharmaceuticals. We have what's a free, sort of a hybrid free market in our entire, across the board in our medical system. It's not just limited to drugs. When there's a lot of competition, private markets can work well to hold down costs. But when you don't have any competition, the manufacturer of that drug can charge whatever they want.
But as lawmakers and the White House try to come up with solutions to lower the cost of prescription drugs, many patients, including desperate diabetics, are rationing their medicines and risking their lives.
This is like a how many billion-dollar industry? Like at some point, I mean, I guess my fear is at some point, insurance is going to just say no.
Some even travel to Mexico and Canada in search of cheaper prices.
You see the bubble?
And for now, having a GoFundMe page pleading help from family and strangers has become the norm.
So you just slowly pull it in. So that's like